Your home is not a magazine for other people to enjoy. It's something that has to work for you. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Love Marby, where we discuss all things home, heart, and hosting. So you know how sometimes you might look around in your space and it feels like there's something missing, like you look online and you see the girlies who are interior designers or they just have a flair for design and you feel like something is missing from your space. Today, I thought it would be great to explore some decor items that are not must-haves, but they do make a difference because, like, you know how you see those videos online that talk about wearing versus styling? I feel like it's the same for your home. Some things in your space are not must-haves, but they do make a difference. They are things that can elevate your space if you include them. And for every person's space, it's going to be different. But for me, I'm gonna be sharing some of the things I love, and I feel like my space would kind of look weird, like at least the kitchen open area space would feel kind of weird without them because they do help to elevate things and take things up a notch. Now, the caveat I would add is I feel like your style, your design style has to be personal to you. There might be some foundational elements that you might see in terms of other people's spaces and you think, okay, I love this or this works for me. But I think it's really important to make sure the things that you add to your home are things you love and you're not getting them because you think they would trend well on Instagram or you think other people would approve of it, because that's my worst nightmare. Like, I need to wake up and look around in my space and feel like I love everything I see. And if I don't, sell it somewhere and get something else that I love, because your home is not a magazine for other people to enjoy. It's something that has to work for you, okay? Here are a list of my items that I love in my space. First one is wooden chopping boards for styling. Now, I know this can kind of lean sometimes into the whole farmhouse aesthetic, that kind of rustic vibe, but I don't have too many wooden chopping boards around. I literally have two that I have by my cooker, because when I first moved into the space, that space behind the cooker just felt kind of bland. And I know sometimes when you have a grand kitchen, the backsplash is kind of like that design feature. But for me, I needed something to kind of go in that space that would bring it to life. But also, I thought wood was the perfect fit because I think sometimes, especially in the age of Instagram design, we can lean towards everything being white and gold or solely white and black, but there is space for elements of nature. I feel like when you have things that you can find in nature, like wood or brass tones, I think they can be quite grounding. Same with marble, same with having particular types of stone. And I think for me, wood is the perfect addition. Sometimes we can shy away from it because we think it's gonna date a space, but I feel like it makes such a huge difference and it can really ground your space. So I love having one giant chopping board behind there that I use often when I'm cooking and prepping, and then another chopping board in front that's smaller that I use sometimes, I shouldn't, but sometimes I can also use it as a trivet if I'm hosting and I want to put my pots on the island. I have special trivets for that, but I love using this as a makeshift trivet sometimes because it just looks good. But I think just having a statement piece, like a giant or larger than life size chopping board, can really make a difference in styling your space. I don't believe in having an amount that's just excessive. It feels like there's 20 wooden chopping boards around just for styling, because it's like you're not going to make use of them and you just don't need that many, in my personal opinion. But I love having these two specifically, as well as others that I end up using as well. But what I'm finding lately is I do tend to grab the larger chopping board, the bigger one behind, because it's just easy to grab. It's easier than me going in the drawer and grabbing the other ones, which I also have as well. One thing I will say is I do need to polish them. I need to use some oil and actually give them some treatment. I know there's oil specifically for chopping boards, so I need to just give it a bit of TLC, and that's something to think about as well if you're going to add that. But in your space, if you are completely averse to wood, then I would say think about maybe some brass, some bronze elements, or just things that can help you in terms of grounding the space. I feel the same about having plants in your space. That's a bonus one I'm gonna throw in. Anything that feels like it's from nature, the more you can incorporate it into your space, the less your space feels kind of static and like it has no life in it. The next thing that I love in my kitchen space is a butter dish. This is definitely something that's not a must-have. You can live without it, but I feel like I love the way it looks in my space. I got this from Le Creuset. It's just a simple black butter dish. I don't love keeping my butter in the fridge. I like it being out. You can keep your butter out. I typically use unsalted butter when I'm baking, when I'm lining tins, or sometimes when I'm sauteing things and I just want a taste of butter. Butter makes everything taste better. If you can't have butter, that's a different subject. And I'm not saying to have it excessively, but when you go to restaurants and you really enjoy your steak, it's probably been basted in butter at the end. So I love having butter on the side of my cooktop where I can just grab it and use it as I need. And it just makes all the difference in the world. But I also love the fact that I have a dish where it looks elegant, it's timeless, it works with everything else that I have going on. I chose a black color for my butter dish because it works with the finish that I have in my kitchen. It's right behind me, that's why I keep peeking backwards. But I love how it looks, things like that are not mandatory, you don't have to have them. They can be inexpensive and you can just grab them and it elevates your space. A butter dish is one of those things for me. Same with my salt and pepper mill. So I guess I would probably group this as items that are functional, but you can also choose an elevated version of it because it's just going to take your space up a notch. So for me, it's the butter dish. It's having a salt and pepper mill that are black, also from Le Creuset, but work with everything else I've got. I would also say olive oil bottles are another thing you can choose to select and make it slightly elevated. I'm yet to find one that I love. I don't think I want one that's clear with the label. I think I would want one that feels kind of like maybe it's from Greece, you know, sometimes it has the lemons all over it and the cork, the wooden cork top. Another decor item that I love that is not a must have, but it does make a difference is having styling bowls and trays. Anything that you can use as a vessel and maybe you want to put some fruit in, having fruit out in your space, it makes such a difference. Even better if you actually like to eat fruit. I don't always love to eat fruit. I love to serve it up to my guests, but having it readily available, especially if I'm cooking with lemons and limes, having them in a bowl, it just injects some sort of life into your space. You know, for some people, they actually love fruit and work through all of those. So you can actually make it functional and stylish, but just getting a serving tray or a vessel or a dish. I have a clamshell dish from Roquette St. George that I absolutely love. Some people use it for their keys, but I love putting fruit in it. It just looks so good on your island or on your worktop. I think the same is true for serving trays that you can put little ornaments in. So I love having my diffuser on the serving tray that I have on the island. I have a little ornament knot that's on there. If you're not careful, you can start to dump things, you know, like your keys, or for me, sometimes my mic is there, just random things that shouldn't be there, and it can start to look cluttered. So you have to be really mindful of keeping it organized and neat. But I love having little trays and vessels around where I use them in a functional way, but it also makes the space look really good. Having things grouped together on a tray, I don't know why, it just always looks good. It looks better. But I would say it's even better if you have things on there that you use frequently or are actually functional in your space. Another item that I think completely elevates my space are clear storage jars. I got mine from IKEA, they're the 365 jar, and normally I see people have the clear lids with them or the acrylic lids, but what I did was I got the wooden lids that they have, and I absolutely love them. I use them to store kind of dry goods, so rice, different types of rice. I store orzo in there. I store bulgur wheat, couscous, beans, and I don't label them like I've labeled other jars that I have in my space because I just don't think it's necessary. I love the way they look up there. I'm yet to add some lights up there because I think at night it would look so lovely being lit from the back, but it's just one of those projects I've not gotten around to. But I absolutely love the way it looks. Like, honestly, I don't feel like I need to label it because I know what's in there. It's rice. The only time I did get confused was trying to figure out where I had jasmine rice versus where I had Stella rice, but I worked it out in the end. But I love these jars. They look so good. And I feel like sometimes, like I said on Instagram before, with the top shelves in your kitchen or where you have free space sometimes, it's so easy to start to fill it with clutter where you put boxes that you're never going to use again. And people say, well, what if I'm moving? Get some bubble wrap and get some other boxes from somewhere else to store it. But you can become, the same way you can become nose blind to the scents in your home, you can become eye blind to boxes. Like, you just have boxes and boxes and boxes. And it's like, I don't know where we learned that habit. It's the same as keeping the boxes for all our iPhones for the past decade. Get rid of some boxes because your space just starts to look like a storage unit. And I love that I've been disciplined in that regard in just keeping the top of my shelves free. And it just looks elevated, it looks clean, it looks elegant when I'm in the space. But clear storage jars honestly make all the difference. And I have a couple of these when it comes to my coffee pods that I also have kind of in my coffee station, and those are labeled because I don't mind that. But when it comes to the ones on my shelf above, you know, my kitchen cabinets, I love the way they look. And you can do this with pasta, you can do this with any other dry goods that you want to keep. I have beans, orzo, bulgur wheat couscous. I have 2 types of rice, and then I have this pasta that I got from Home Goods recently, and I just loved the way the pasta looked, and I was like, I need it in a jar. But it can just elevate your space a whole lot by just having it around. Absolutely 10 out of 10 would recommend. Another item that's functional but can also be really elevated in your kitchen is having a good towel dispenser. Now, I know for some kitchens these are built in underneath a shelf, but I went on Amazon and I literally just selected a marble base dispenser, towel dispenser with a black rod. I think it's something that can be so easily overlooked, and it's easy to go for the plastic ones or just some random one that you found. But picking one that fits into your overall decor style in your kitchen and is still elevated, it's such a simple thing, but it makes such a huge difference. And that's the thing when it comes to styling your space. You can't afford to overlook the small things. That's like when you go into a hotel or you go into a showroom or particular space and you feel like, oh my gosh, look how beautiful everything looks. It's because bit by bit, every single detail has been considered. So I'm not saying you need to pick something overly expensive or overly glamorous. It's literally a simple towel dispenser, but I've been intentional about the one I have in my space, and I feel like it makes a difference. It was inexpensive. I've had it. It's been over 3 years and it looks great, and I would recommend just maybe assessing that in your kitchen space. Another decor item that I feel like has been all the rage over Instagram and TikTok and kind of gets people upset for some reason is personalized bottles and jars. Now, I loved having these when I had an open coffee station, and I still have a few of them laid out, but I think they make such a huge difference even in my bathrooms, but also in my kitchen space. What I have for my hand soap, hand sanitizer and hand cream is just a tray, and I have personalized bottles. I love the look of the dark amber bottles and then the black pumps, and I just think it looks so elevated. I've gone for the metal pumps instead of the plastic ones, and I just love the look of them. Whatever you go for, I know some people go for like a gold finish or brass, but I just think having something personalized. Mine say Marby's Kitchen when it's in the kitchen, and they say Marby's Manor in other places of the home, and it says hand sanitizer, hand soap. I just think it's so cute. I'm like, I can have it, so why not? I know for some people it's like, why do you decant things into other bottles? Because I can. Because I may not be in control of other areas of my life, but I can be in control of what the bottles in my house look like, okay? So if it bothers you, don't do it. But if you like the look of it and you've been considering it, 10 out of 10, I would recommend it. Another thing that works really well in most kitchen spaces is having a marble tray and a glass dome. Now this works really well when you're making, I can't remember what they call these cakes. I normally bake bundt cakes, but apparently there's a term for just making cakes that you don't decorate, a sharing cake or something like that. Snacking cake? I can't remember. But I love just having baked goods or baked cakes that I can put in this dome. Sometimes I'll have croissants, sometimes I'll just have pastries that people can grab, because I do love hosting and entertaining. Or just in the mornings when I want to have coffee, it's just nice to lift the dome off, like how you would see in a nice coffee shop. It's just an elevated experience. Like, yes, I can keep the croissants in the packet and keep them in the cupboard, but it's nice to see them in the dome. What I did was I got a cheese board, a marble cheese board on its own. And then from a catering website, like a catering supplies website, I got a dome. And I just made sure they were the right dimensions, and I put one on top of the other. You can probably find a set somewhere like TK Maxx, Home Goods, Home Sense, or anywhere else, depending on the style you're looking for. But based on what I liked in terms of the handle, because I was particular about that as well, I just decided to get the two of them separately. And it's just to bear in mind how to care for those. So with mine, with a marble base, you have to make sure you don't wash it with like soap and water. I typically just make sure I kind of wipe it, give it a good wipe, spray it down. You're not typically supposed to, but I still spray it down because, you know, it's got to be clean depending on what was in there before. But I think it just looks great on your island. Sometimes on my dining table, I have it there. Like if I don't have place settings laid out on the table, which I do sometimes just randomly, I will also put the dome on there with a couple of books and some ornaments and just style it up. And it just looks good. And even when there's nothing in the dome, it looks good. So I would recommend it. Another thing I would say, especially if you have an open space, like an open kitchen, dining area, or if you just have any kind of open space in your home, this can extend beyond your kitchen area, is having little stools or pedestals that you can place things on. Because sometimes, again, this is why maybe if you put your camera up, you don't have to upload it, but if you use your camera to kind of look at your space, like sometimes I will open up my phone, and even when I used to make wedding cakes, I would look at things through the lens of the camera, because you can become, same way you can become nose blind to things in your home, like smells in your home, you can become eye blind, for lack of a better word, to how things actually look in your space. And you kind of underestimate the difference a stool here, a pedestal with something on top, an ornament can make. And I just love having those around. I have pedestals from H&M, and then I have these marble stools that I got from Denelm, but they're not big, they're like drinks tables. And you can find these, even if you wanted to go thrifting and find them in a charity shop or just in Home Goods, TK Maxx, anywhere, IKEA. It doesn't have to be something that's overly stylish, but then you put an ornament on top of it. So on one, I've got a plant pot, and I've got my rubber plant, the only plant that has stayed with me and stayed alive. And then on another, I've got an ornament head. In the living room, I've got a pedestal where I've got an orchid plant on top of it, because what it does is it allows you to play with height and dimension in your space. Otherwise, sometimes when you walk around, everything is kind of on the same level, and you underestimate kind of the variety that you need sometimes to make things interesting in a space. So I would definitely recommend getting some side tables or some pedestals to just have things dotted around and elevated in your space. The final thing I would recommend that is not a must-have, but it makes such a huge difference. I think it is a must-have, but it makes a huge difference, is having art in your space. I've shared about this before on Instagram, where I grew up in West African culture, and sometimes in some homes, based on religious background, like art was something that could be, like you might need to be wary of, because there might be like some not so great vibes in there, whether it's witchcraft, juju, whatever you want to call it. So that's why it took me so long to understand that I can make my space beautiful by adding art. It's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to be wary of, and I can find what I like. I love having black art in my home. I love having art that reminds me of home, reminds me of my culture, reminds me of my upbringing, reminds me of things I love. A lot of the pieces that I have are sourced from Lagos, and one of the pieces that I love in my living room is from South Africa. It's a David Ballon piece, and I just love having them in my home. I love taking them to get framed specially and coming up with the type of frame that I want to have around it. So I get them stretched and framed, and I pick frames that I feel like would complement my space really well. I feel like I found someone amazing to work with on that. And I just love how art brings my space to life. And even in my kitchen dining area, I have art now, and it makes such a huge difference. I know sometimes for people having smaller frames, like A4 size frames, kind of against your backsplash or against your worktop works. But I typically have them up on the wall. And I think it makes such a huge difference. And I would always recommend trying to build an art collection, or even if you get some posters from somewhere and you frame them, it makes such a huge difference in your space. And I try to be intentional about the kind of art that I have in each space. So the one that I have in my dining area, one is someone from the north in Nigeria playing an instrument. And, you know, oftentimes that can be an instrument used for a prayer call, so calling people together and commune. Sometimes it can also just be reflective of music and that being part of the fabric when we gather. I also have one that's a marketplace in Lagos. And I love the way that it looks. I love the way it looks in this space. There's another one that I really would love for this dining area as well. And I'm gonna see if I can get it and swap it out. But I love being intentional with the art that I have in each space and how it looks and how it reflects what I hope my space to embody. And I feel like you should do the same when it comes to art. You don't need to pick what you think is going to look good on the gram. You don't need to pick what you think is currently trending in terms of art and aesthetic. If you like landscapes, pick that. The landscape I have in my bedroom reminds me of dawn. It reminds me of a new day. It reminds me of newness, because it is a landscape of, I think, dawn. That's what it looks like when I look at it. And I love that reminder because I love mornings. I love the newness that comes with each day. And I love being reminded of that through artwork. So I'm not typically someone who has like sayings and words printed around. I think that look works for some people. If you love that, have that in your space. I actually love collecting pieces, whether they're photographs or oil paintings on canvas. And yeah, I would definitely recommend having art in your space, definitely. So it's a nice to have. It's not a must have, but I feel like eventually when you start to invest in it, it will feel like a must have. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found some useful tips when it comes to things that you can include in your space, especially in your kitchen and dining area that would elevate it. If I forgot anything or if you guys have anything to add that really works for you, let me know down below and maybe we can do a part 2 of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, share this video with someone that you know would enjoy it. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that Love Marby is here on YouTube, and I can't wait to share more with you guys. Bye.